Here's Johnny. I'll be back.
And you will know my name is the Lord. I'm walking here.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Groovy.
Sexy motherfucker.
So sad there wasn't a Deadpool song this time.
Yeah,
About
what are we
Wolverine.
doing? Yeah, there were so many
Maybe they
opportunities.
just don't make music anymore.
You could have had a Deadpool variant who was a musician. That would have been easy enough. You could.
How
You
we
could
finally
actually.
see D-Pity.
You could have forced Taylor Swift into the movie as a Deadpool. You could have had such synergy happening.
I'm very disturbed that Kid Pool was on set was played by Reynolds' daughter.
So they killed Kid Pool, right? Like Wolverine
Yes.
decapitated him.
Yes.
Kid Pool's got a little baby body. It's fine.
I do
Actually
not
more-
want to see Kid Pool regenerate. That would be highly disturbing.
Yeah, no. That's one of the deleted scenes they probably just leave off for a reason.
Meanwhile, I assume Baby Pool was left alive so he could get revenge years later, like the little girl from Kill Bill.
They should have had Mekhi Phifer protect Baby Pool. I like the pause where you remembered where that reference came from, and that's what I was aiming for.
I think they should have gone with a Baby Pool cutaway joke like they did in Hundreds of Beavers where he finds the two baby bunnies.
Cody, you chose not to be part of the Hundreds of Beavers episode.
I was probably doing something that day. I don't remember what was going on.
What I love...
Not going to defend myself.
I'm probably innocent.
What I love is I know that you were showing Hundreds of Beavers to somebody at a party. You chose not to bring that up to defend yourself.
Oh, yeah, I was in a different state.
I was spreading the good word of Hundreds of Beavers.
Well, sadly, we didn't actually have a party where everyone saw Hundreds of Beavers, but I did force my friend in California to watch it, and it's infectious. He's gonna start showing it to people, and it's gonna be everywhere.
Our birthday movie this year.
Oh, that's a good birthday movie.
Planning ahead.
I'm hijacking this. We're no longer talking about Deadpool 3. We're actually going to go back to Hundreds of Beavers because I didn't make the first episode.
Isn't that, in a way, talking about Deadpool and Wolverine?
That's why I'm giving myself a pat on the back. We're definitely feeding into the current zeitgeist. The whole moment, we're in a part of it. But also, we're going to talk about a movie I really love instead. God damn, Hundreds of Beavers. What a film. Like, I am not exaggerating. I would just lose my shit if Hundreds of Beavers got nominated for Movie of the Year. Like, the Academy should just give them the
It
Oscar.
should.
I'm
Make
not
it
even
happen
joking
for
around.
Golden
Like, it
Globes.
doesn't fit the mold, of course. It's not like a big dramatic picture or anything. But fuck that. This is the most fun I have had at the movies in years. It's delightful. The amount of dedication to make something like this is unparalleled. Fuck it. Throw it away. I don't even care about the other movies. We can just not have the Oscars this year. All the awards should go to Hundreds of Beavers.
It is
Hundreds
a
of
movie about the
Beavers is
triumph
the
of the human
friend
spirit.
you've always wanted.
I love it so much. And it gets funnier every time I watch it. It's not even like I'm necessarily discovering new jokes. It's just, oh, right. I'm remembering that there's like 500 great jokes after this, which just makes me so happy. Anyways, we can end the episode. I don't even care about talking about Deadpool 3. I got to say my bit about Hundreds of Beavers. And why wasn't there a beaver variant inside the MCU? What are we doing here? Someone get Kevin Feige to get his shit together.
Why wasn't there a honey badger in Hundreds of Beavers?
You know, they could have cross-promoted. It's a good question. I don't know. I wasn't part of the production. I'm just a hype man.
Honestly, I could see Wolverine showing up in Hundreds of Beavers.
That would be delightful. They do a spin-off in Australia. Hundreds
That
of
just seems like
wombats.
that would have been. That just seems like that would have been a cutaway joke.
They have wombats in Australia? I don't actually know where wombats come from.
I think so. They were in Rocko's Modern Life.
Were they? I don't remember that. Wombats.com.
And I would not type that in if I were you.
I typed it and I got real scared because I didn't know where I was going. It took me to evergreen.com/marketplace/wombat-com.
Squatting on wombats.com.
Wombat.com is for sale. They'll give you the price on application. So if someone wants wombat.com, that's
It
out there.
sounds like you've ended up at a human trafficking site.
Wombats aren't known for that. They're known for having like square poop.
Cody, buy
Not trafficking.
wombats.com.
Maybe I will.
Do it.
Square
I just-
do it.
square poop.
Have we done the introduction for the show yet?
No, we haven't. Sorry,
Okay.
we're going to get to that in a second, but where do wombats come from? Tasmania. Oh, we're way off.
Oh, okay. I was thinking because of the 90s Taz cartoon. Taz from Tasmania. There was a wombat in there.
Yeah, so we were wrong on a lot of things here. What the fuck? Okay, sorry, I scrolled down too far, and then for some reason Wikipedia's like first picture on the wombat page is the female reproductive tract. I have now seen an illustration of a wombat vagina, and I didn't need that.
Do you like it? Imagine
kind of.
it hanging on your wall.
I'm sorry. Now I'm looking at it again. There's a sinus cavity in here. The rectal glands.
Wait, it can smell?
I hope not. There's a vaginal blind sac. I don't actually know if people have these either, though. I'm not educated very well. It's got ovaries. I know those.
Well, I would assume.
Yeah.
I would hope.
Why is this next to the illustration of the wombat's dentistry? What is... Okay, whatever.
Is there teeth in there?
There are, not in the vagina. It's not a vagina dentata.
Teeth was a movie.
Yeah. Anyways, folks, welcome to Box Office Pulp, your one-stop podcast for movies, madness, and moxie. I'm your host, Cody. Joining me tonight, as we continue to not talk about Deadpool 3, are my co-host, Mike. Say hello, Mike.
The proposal.
And my other co-host, Jamie. Say hello, Jamie.
I, too, have a sinus cavity where I probably should.
I hate it.
I don't think we're using sinus cavity correctly.
I don't think that's what it is. I don't think that's what it is at all. I think I just saw the word sinus labeled on here.
Is.
Oh no.
I don't think we're doing anything that's right. I don't.
Something gives a new meaning to the word queef.
Smegma.
I don't think any of these jokes have landed, but we've unfortunately tied them to the intro of the episode, and now we must use them. Folks, thank you so much for joining us. Spoiler alert, we'll get this out right away. We're talking about Deadpool and Wolverine. If you're listening to this episode, that means the movie's probably been out already for a week or two, and you've seen all the spoilers. You can't avoid them. I literally typed in Deadpool and Wolverine to my browser, and the first thing that came up was ruining one of the big cameos of the movie. So you're too late. You might as well just watch the episode and give up on being surprised by anything in life. It's over for you. But if you still want to pretend there's a chance there's something new out there and there's fresh things under the sun, go watch the movie first, then come back.
I saw this opening day solely because I knew this would be one of those movies the internet would spoil within hours.
I avoided most of the spoilers until Tuesday, and I saw the movie on Wednesday. So it was the last leg of the trip when I fell down on my face. The only one I somehow didn't see, and again, we've already warned you about spoilers, so no bitching at home, folks. Chris Evans. I didn't know about the Chris Evans cameo. That was the only one I didn't know about.
Spoilers. The Human Torch died.
I had most of those cameos spoiled for me the night before, just reading a random Comic-Con article that decided to, without any warning, spoil the Deadpool Comic-Con panel at the end where they brought out everybody from all the cameos. I mean, it only spoiled the ones they brought out on stage, so there were still a couple that I didn't know about, but that was still all the major ones.
Yeah. The funniest part about all this to me is I went with a friend and one of his friends. So we're sitting in the theater, the movie ends, and my friend turns to me and he goes, I didn't realize that was going to be so cameo heavy. And it's like, this is beautiful. You have lived in a world where you somehow didn't know how Deadpool 3 was going to work. That's amazing. Good for you. But then he threw away all that goodwill because he mentioned, it kind of sucked though, because they didn't give me a spoiler warning for Logan, and I haven't seen that one yet.
Good God.
And I'm like, hold up, that's on you. That movie came out in 2017. You've had your chance.
Like 7 years ago.
Which I don't like even thinking in my mind it was that long ago that Logan came out. But it was like, hold on, no. You've had your chance. You can't blame this on the movie, people. If it takes you more than 5 years to see a film,
it's your fault.
Spoilers are fair game.
Yeah.
That's been one of the bonkers things since seeing this movie is how much this film solidifies that the end of the Fox universe was an entire pop culture cycle ago at this point.
What was the
Logan is no longer
one?
that movie that just came out a year or two ago. That's so weird to me.
Was New Mutants technically like the last one?
Yeah, and that was a holdout for I think like over a year.
That was a holdout. It came out in 2020. I think, right? Or was it produced in 2020? I forget.
No, I think it came out in 2020. It was supposed to come out before Dark Phoenix, but it ended up coming out afterwards.
Yeah, it came out August 28th, 2020. So we are like 4 years past the end of this whole series, which makes this such a curious choice to basically have an end cap movie that celebrates a whole era of superhero films that we've moved on from. I guess before we get too far into this, I think we need to draw lines in the sand immediately. Mike, Jamie, I'm going off the impression that you both enjoyed the movie quite a bit.
Yes.
Yeah, I like it.
We are enemies. No, I didn't hate it, but I also did not love the movie. I thought it was fine. Like a lot of the thoughts I had after the movie were probably negative sounding enough where it sounds like I hate this thing, but that's also not true. I had fun watching it, but it's my least favorite of the Deadpool movies. I didn't quite go for its charms the same way I did for the previous entries, but there are moments of it that I can appreciate as kind of like a cape shit fan. So I'm slightly further out than you two.
I would definitely say Deadpool 2 is a stronger movie. And if
Really?
I were to
You go
have
two?
and if
Two
I
is
were
a
to
little
have,
surprising. I think I like 2 more than 1 as well, but I think most people would put 1 first.
a lot of people have cooled hardcore on 2 for some reason, where like that's one of the few times I will absolutely go to bat for a sequel being better than the original movie in every conceivable way.
I mean, they had a little more budget to actually do action scenes in 2.
Yeah.
It felt like Ryan Reynolds was able to cut loose quite a bit more. I don't know. I enjoy 2 a lot. It's my favorite of the 3.
Yeah, I think if I had any substantial criticism I walked out of the theater with is I do feel almost in the same way that Spider-Man 2 kind of never quite outruns the shadow of Spider-Man. I'm sorry, Spider-Man 3 never quite outruns the shadow of Spider-Man 2. Deadpool 3 never quite gets away from feeling like a variation of Deadpool 2.
There's parts of it that feel like it's treading water just because the whole thrust here is Deadpool is trying to win back his now ex-girlfriend, which is very similar to 2, where it's like, oh, Deadpool's trying to unkill his girlfriend. It feels like it's treading water from that sense, which is fine, whatever. It's mostly you're coming to these movies, this one particularly, because you want the humor and you want the Wolverine aspect of it. So I'm not even that concerned about the plot. That's kind of backseat in this case, because I don't think anyone is showing up to Deadpool 3 and hoping for a really involved, well-structured movie. They're hoping for a lot of jokes and some cool action.
I don't really agree there. For me, like Deadpool 2, which is good, it's a great movie. My problems with that are I feel like the meta and jokiness went a little bit further than the actual heart of it. And that's kind of why I prefer the first one to the second one. Out of all of them, here it felt like it was the right tone, and the drive of it felt like a natural continuation in a way where I was able to connect with it. And and the fact that it was a character continuation for Wade's story while also being a kind of a meta story on more or less, I mean, it sounds stupid to word this about Fox superhero movies, but film history in a way that is that you have a lot of like attachment to, and like combining the 2 of them really worked for me. So for me, I resonated a lot with the heart of this movie, and that's why it actually kind of comes out being my favorite. And despite actually, I went in when I heard that Deadpool and Vanessa would be broken up, I thought, well, that's just fucking stupid after everything we just went through with the weird timey-wimey stuff at the end of 2 that most people kind of clicked out of. But that was something that I really enjoyed about the movie. And granted, Vanessa's not in it very much, but the idea that they're broken up for reasons unrelated to their relationship necessarily falling apart, and it's something that has to do more with personal shit for Wade. And specifically, if you're a big fan of Deadpool in the comics, like this kind of emotional resonance that he has rings really true. And him still being able to be friends with Vanessa amongst all of that rings really true. And I liked seeing that part of that character kind of ground him a bit more instead of just being, you can see him more care beyond when he cares for the need of a joke.
Which I think is something that gives the meta aspect of this movie a lot more of a weight to it than I think a lot of the other multiverse movies have had up to this point. Because one thing I've been scratching my head about since Deadpool 2 is what you could possibly do for Wade in a third movie. As versatile as Wade is as a comic book character, he's more somebody you can drop into other people's stories if you're not going to go into like any kind of deep lore or anything like that. So all you really have are the basics of Deadpool, which is using humor to deal with illness, using humor to deal with grief, and using humor to deal with inferiority. And I had no idea how like they could do the other 2. How do you spin that into a film that isn't just retreading things from the other 2? Tying Wade's feeling of superhero inferiority in with the Fox universe being in its own way made to feel inferior by time and the success of another company. I think that's brilliant, and I think that's a really interesting way to kind of tug on the heartstrings of the audience a little bit too. which a bit crass as it is to, take a comic book character that was put into a universe at the very tail end of it and say, okay, use this character's emotions, as an avatar for how you feel about, this 20-year period of films. But I don't know, for me at least, it worked. It feels like a movie that's throwing a Fox universe a party.
Yeah, that's what I liked about it.
Yeah, I mean, you have like The Outsiders where they give you Blade, which people actually do still love the Blade movies. But then you have Elektra, and people obviously they love Logan
in my theater, which was weird.
Like Gambit is kind of a weird callback. Mostly it's like people are, oh hey, Channing Tatum, okay. But it feels like they kind of pulled a lot of jokey characters for this like ultimate team up group. And it's, I don't know, I have a hard time getting my head around it where they're trying to get you to care about these characters while saying, yeah, these are the B stars, and you didn't quite give them the chance, or maybe you don't remember them with the kindness that you should, and we're going to let them go out as heroes and give them a big moment. But then it also feels like their big moment doesn't really matter. It's very rote to me. I don't know. And it kind of serves as a joke, too, because you have moments like Deadpool basically saying, like, or Wolverine saying, oh, you guys are going to die. Like, none of you have a chance of actually surviving this final climax, which is true. They all kind of get wiped out and then Magic back alive at the end. Actually, I'm not sure. Did they all get Magic back alive?
Died. No.
Well, they also talk to the TVA and they beg for basically their friends to get another chance. So I was taking that as the TVA being like, oh, we can do something about this.
No, based on Eliath would erase you from existence.
See, that's where I'm at. I'm like, okay, we've introduced Eliath, who apparently is the worst gatekeeper in the world because it never manages to actually eat anyone except for old Loki.
It's really scary.
We've made a cool-looking cloud. Let us use it, all right?
It looks cool in the sky.
Yeah.
I feel like at this point it is apparent that there does not seem to be any kind of multiverse Bible for these movies, because every single one of these projects seems to have a slightly different idea of how exactly the multiverse works.
And particularly the Void, which in Loki felt very like, oh, you would only survive here a very, very short amount of time. Now it's, as Jamie and I kind of talked about, it's Battle World.
Yeah.
Which is
cool. Really cool, by the way. Yeah. And I actually like that more. Like, no, you can avoid Eliath, but you're stuck in the void. You're stuck in fucking purgatory in the trash heap of the multiverse, which is a really cool concept.
To get less negative, I want to focus on some of the things I did enjoy about the movie. And obviously the big shining star here of Deadpool and Wolverine is the fact they got Hugh Jackman back, who is, once again, giving maximum effort. I mean, even when the guy is reading off lines I think are kind of like eye-roll worthy, he's still trying to sell the emotion. He's giving it all, and even like the cameos, the jokey ones where he's playing comic accurate Wolverine.
He's having so much fun.
He's really into it. He's having fun. He sells the character. Like, you can tell this is a guy who played that character for years and has a lot of ownership over it. So that's great. That's delightful. It's also
comic accurate Wolverine may be the funniest fucking joke in MCU history.
It was pretty good.
There, can the internet from 10 years ago shut the fuck up?
Right. So that was neat. Obviously, the big thing for me as like a comic dork is getting to see him wear the mask for like the entire third act instead of putting it on and taking it off after 2 seconds. There's so many times where
conversations while wearing that fucking thing.
Yeah, there were so many times where I'm like, they're going to take the mask off. They're going to get rid of it. And no, they were smart enough to feel like the fans have been waiting for so long.
Yeah. Here's a dramatic scene where he's wearing that fucking mask.
Yeah, this is a fan service moment. We're going to have literally his shirt explode, but the mask stays on. And I'm like, okay, you know what I came for. Wolverine in the comic accurate mask. It's fucking amazing. It looks super cool. I'm very bummed all the other movies didn't do this.
It was delightful hearing a theater of people pop for Wolverine putting on his mask.
It's one of those deals where you look at it and you're like, how the fuck didn't they get this into like X3 or something? This looks amazing.
It's not that complicated a design. You just CGI the white eyes.
Yeah.
Or just let his eyes be shown, which would probably work a little bit better. And I was
did think
surprised
the
at
eyes
how
were
well
a
the
little
design
distracting at points because he has the same eyes as Deadpool. So
he has the same eyes as Deadpool, but they don't really move, and also it gave him that a weird like anytime Batman has white lenses in live action, and he just looks like he's staring.
Yeah, this just that entire third act just proves why Batman really should never have the white lenses.
So and if you can get past that, which is easy enough to do, yeah, just put his eyeballs there, and that's such a cool mask. And Hugh Jackman sells the hell out of it when he's just scowling and growling at people. Like, this fucking color scheme
doesn't look too stupid to be on film.
Right.
I think everyone is insisted for 20 years.
Though I will say the brown suit looked cooler, but I'm also a sucker for the brown suit.
Genuine Logan enjoyers know that the brown suit is top. Why is it brown?
I mean,
because John Byrne was colorblind. That's why.
One of us. So I will say that I'm not immune to the propaganda of like, hey, here's some old shit. You know this? Like, here's a reference. That's the kind of stuff that I eat up. So they did get me on comic accurate Wolverine just showing up for the third act and fighting through stuff. The splash panel where they're jumping out of the back of the Deadpool bus. Beautiful, beautiful shot. It's one of those. So good. You know, and then, of course, the joke of Deadpool landing on his face and ruining the moment. Those are good beats. I liked the humor. It lands for me. The thing is, again, it's a Deadpool movie, so I expect it to be referential. I expected fourth wall breaks. I expected meta. And so that half works. But again, I think it's torqued a little too high where it drowns out the mechanics of the dramatics.
Well, it's in a weird state where the sincerity is cranked up to 10, but the irreverence is also cranked up to 10. So as where it kind of went back and forth with the first two movies, it's going all the way in opposite directions without much of a center.
See, once again, I did not feel that way.
Well, you've been outvoted. Mike, get off the podcast.
Fair enough.
No. I mean, most people, I think, have enjoyed the movie. I haven't polled every single person that came out. But again, my friends who I went with, they really liked it. And then I was a spoil sport who's like, My parents went to go see it, which is surprising to me that they're both Deadpool fans now. And they both had a really good time. Like, my dad never texts me about movies. And he saw it and immediately sent me a text that said, Deadpool 3 is really good. So I think most people probably agree with you, Mike.
Now.
They probably... Yeah, most people are probably on your side. We're like, this is a blast. I'm having a good time. And for whatever reason, part of me was not able to get past the division between the two moods of the film.
For once, Mike isn't left out. Talking a bit more about like the heart of the movie that I really did like was I was surprised. The one thing I was worried about, as excited as I was for Jackman to be Wolverine again, I kind of figured going in that this was a thing where it's just going to be Wolverine being Wolverine for about 2 hours, and that was about it. I've been thinking about this more. I've seen a couple people examine it in this way, that we actually get a really nice, interesting addendum to Wolverine's past film arc leading up to Logan, which was very much Logan wrestling with being Wolverine, having the animal inside of him. And this was actually kind of an inverse of that. Like, this was a Wolverine who was wallowing in being Logan, who was a little bit too much being Logan. And that's what led him to be in his own shit too much and abandon the X-Men when they were hate crime to death, which actually played against something like Logan, where it's Wolverine coming to terms with himself and coming to some sort of inner peace with who he is. But you see it in that direction. It's Logan to Wolverine. Here, it's Logan actually accepting the mantle of Wolverine, going from Logan to superhero, which we've never really seen before. And it isn't something that's even particularly explored a lot in the comics. You always get the man wrestling with the animal. Here, it's a guy kind of trying to more ignore the animal, and he's just a drunkard. And I really appreciated there being an actual purpose to Logan being in the story that actually lines up really well with what Wade's going for, because they're kind of very similar tales.
It's very much a Logan mythology film in the same way like the Lego Batman movie or Into the Spider-Verse was for those respective characters. Like, it's as much a movie about what the character has stood for as a pop culture figure as it is about the actual movie character, which, like you said, we haven't really seen from any kind of media. The closest we really got was the Mangold movie, The Wolverine, which is just Wolverine accepting being a comic book character, much less a superhero.
Did anyone else think that handsome Deadpool really, instead of being Ryan Reynolds, should have just been Rob McElhenney?
I'm really sad his cameo was cut.
Yeah, that would have been fun to have those two together. But it also feels like that would have been a good role for him right there.
It would have been good, yeah.
Like there's
but I also imagine the general
about...
audience would have been so fucking confused.
I mean, come on. Always Sunny has been running for like 20 years. They have an idea who this man is.
I just mean, why is there a Deadpool that's not Ryan Reynolds? Probably would have weirded them out. Even though I still say, was Cowboy Deadpool Matthew McConaughey? That sounded exactly like McConaughey.
All right.
All I know is how confused were so many audience members by Cavill.
They got Brad Pitt to have a 2-frame cameo in the previous one. You can't tell me he's not underneath one of those masks.
Cavill got such a fucking big pop in my theater.
Oh shit! I spaced about that one. That was a neat what if situation. Like if we're
never going to see this, so give it to us anyway.
Yeah, if we're doing all these multiverse movies, I almost feel like this is kind of the machine is for. You want those weird, the dream casting, it happened, so everyone can shut up. Then again, we got
CGI
that with
Nicolas Cage.
We got that for Fantastic Four, right? In the Mr. Reed casting, and people were upset about that because then they didn't get the real thing later. So.
Well, that was a weird thing where people were so into that as fan casting. Then it happened. Then everyone decided it was stupid.
Yeah, the attitude on that one swung all over the place. I could not read the room.
Nerds are dumb. Nerds are fucking dumb.
But that cameo, it works so much better, right? Because you have the DC Marvel feud. Everyone knows about that. And then there's the whole thing with Cavill losing out on Superman and other roles he could have had. That whole kind of buried past that more film nerds would be slightly more keyed into. We all knew he was never going to come to the MCU, so it's nice to get this little send-off, that kind of weird Elseworld moment. Plus, it works.
He should have been Dr. Doom.
Sorry, I just had a flashback to Immortals, and now I'm just imagining Dr. Doom giving the speech before he leads all of the gods into war against the Titans, and boy, that would have been neat.
I think Cavill remembers he was in that movie?
No, probably not. I am like the one stand left for Immortals. Anyways, folks,
I was saying that because it was directed by Tarsem.
Yeah, well, that goes for a long way in my book.
Also, is anybody else really amused that, we can't do Weasel anymore, so we're going to make Peter so important that he's an anchor being for the entire Deadpool course.
I really enjoyed the Peter stuff. That worked for me quite well.
He's delightful. We're Deadpool. What does he even mean by that?
I appreciate in a much lazier Deadpool 3, the no-brainer multiverse story would have been, of course he meets the Deadpool. I appreciate the restraint of just having them be villains for the final fight.
Yeah, and calling them the Deadpool Corps, which made my little nerd heart happy.
Deadpool was introduced with no buildup. Now, if I was going to say anything about the third act, I will say, and I'd be very curious when the DVD comes out to just see if the commentary says anything. It feels like Cassandra wasn't supposed to be involved at the very end with how she kind of dips out of the story, then immediately dips right back in, like following them just a few minutes later.
There's a quick turn in the motivation there, yeah.
I feel like something was simplified.
I feel like there was absolutely a studio note from Feige or something that's like, okay, generic TVA man is not a strong enough villain to nearly kill what Deadpool and Wolverine. Like, just find some way for Cassandra to be responsible.
So have her go Owlman.
Yeah, there's a couple of moments in there where it's like something was a little hinky. I think like there was either some sort of reshoot or something to bridge gaps, and it's not like this is the only movie that's ever done it, but there were a few spots where it felt a little sticky.
There's also some, I guess, some rumors about things being shifted around when, like, after Kang got nixed, about certain pieces of like setup with the TVA and whatnot. I mean, who knows if how true any of that is, but yeah, it does feel like, fuck, can we have Cassandra show up again?
I'm all for her being weirdly added to the end to get more scenes with Cassandra, because that performance was delightful. As essentially just comic accurate Cassandra Nova if she made pussy jokes.
Yeah, pretty much.
That was very
honestly
surreal.
More interesting powers.
I feel real dumb. I had to look at the actress's name. So Emma Corrin, yeah, definitely eating with that role, which in a lot of hands would just be fairly thankless. You know, you're kind of like the generic bad guy who's there because we need an enemy to wrap up the movie, and we need someone with a little more flair than, like Jamie said, the generic TVA man. But
the great name of Paradox.
Yeah. She's really, you know, she seems like she's having a blast with this role and really leaning into the kind of not quite camp of it, but the archness of it. And it works. You know, she's fun to watch, even though there's maybe not all that much there on page for her to work with.
I appreciate that they do make fun of how odd the TVA is as a presence in the MCU when you really boil it down.
Yeah.
They're a fascistic-coded police organization that is also delightful and twee. Just don't think about it.
Sorry, slight sidebar. Emma Corrin is also going to be in Nosferatu coming out at the end of the year.
Oh, that's right.
What a year
I
for
forgot
them.
about
That's
that.
great. Playing Anna Harding.
That's awesome.
I said Anna Harding as if people are going to know who that character is. I don't know who Anna Harding is.
I feel like people who listen to this podcast would know that. But yeah, if they could ever, I don't know, figure out some way to have Cassandra come back in like an X-Men movie, I would like that, please. Because honestly, underused villain in the comics, but yeah, that's kind of energy the movies need.
I'm curious to see how they'll approach the MCU moving forward after this, though, because the movie already takes its time to kind of poke fun at the fact that a lot of these movies aren't quite hitting with audiences, and the multiverse isn't anyone's really favorite phase of Marvel, but it seems like you can't go back from it.
They're doubling down, if anything. The timing of this movie coming out and the Downey announcement is hilarious. Like we were saying before, turning on the recorder, Downey getting $80 million to be Earth 2 Tony Stark as Doctor Doom seems like a Deadpool after credits joke.
Right. I'm assuming, though, with the huge success of this Deadpool, we're going to get more Deadpools. There's going to be a 4 at some point here.
Yeah. Well, we have to see Thor hold him and cry.
Right. That dangling plot thread. I stood all the way to the end of the credits. I'm like, okay, they have to address the Thor thing, right?
We're not getting that shit till Secret Wars.
No. Granted, the final end cap joke for the credits of Deadpool Wolverine, pretty good, worth sticking around for. I'm glad it's not like, hey, we're teasing a new movie. It's, hey, let's go back and explain one of those jokes and give it a new layer.
I love how this movie gave us nothing as far as MCU continuity. This was through and through. Yeah, this was just through and through a Deadpool movie in the Fox universe. Like it exists as its own thing. Like for a movie that a lot of people were just assuming, well, the only reason they're making another Deadpool is to introduce mutants to the MCU, obviously.
I respect the fact that this was what was
an
going to happen.
island.
Yeah, I thought like, oh, maybe people will come over from Deadpool's world, because I know Reynolds said that Marvel originally, like, we just want Deadpool. We don't want any of the baggage that came like with Deadpool, like all the Fox layoff stuff, which is how the plot of the movie ended up forming, was them commenting on that fact, where Deadpool's like, no, they have to come too. And like that legacy has to kind of come with me in some way. And that makes me curious about how the creation of this movie has adjusted their plans for any of that. Because that universe still exists. Obviously, things will merge with Secret Wars. I mean, just based on how Secret Wars usually works. So then how did those characters then integrate? And I'm very curious about the choice they made, considering they didn't want any of this shit other than just Deadpool by himself. They chose to put X-23 in the final scene.
I'm just waiting for Deadpool 4 to go to the other side, and it's just him celebrating all of the Sony Marvel movies. So it's nothing but Ghost Rider references the whole time.
It's Deadpool and Spidey.
I could very easily see, like, can we reach out to Nick Cage and get him to be Johnny Blaze?
I don't know if you'd have to convince him that hard. I don't
think you'd have to convince him at all. I think that might be the problem and why they said, no, you will not call Nicolas Cage.
What if Nick Cage was just waiting outside in a leather jacket, like, put me in, coach?
Was wearing a toupee.
What
just scratching at the door.
Come on, guys.
One thing I will say that is an absolute net positive about this movie, I think, no matter how you feel about it, is through a series of circumstances that were never supposed to happen, there's an epilogue movie to the Fox superhero universe. Like, just think about how fucked up it is to think this movie didn't exist. 20, 30, 50 years from now, we would look back at all these movies and go, and then one day the X-Men universe just disappeared, and audiences just kind of rolled with that, and a lot of people weren't sure why, and time just moved on. I think there's something kind of special about the fact that that we're all kind of having a moment to, as a film-going community, sit and observe that, okay, these movies are over now. We are getting a moment to say goodbye to them and stand around and say, okay, this did mean something to somebody at some point, which you don't really get to do that in show business at all, ever.
I think things are changing a little bit, though, where franchises now live forever. I mean, we had that with maybe James Bond, but even that was fine with getting rid of some of its, like Bond, there's new Bond every year. So many years, people get used to that. But now it's common to have legacy sequels where it's like, hey, remember 40 years ago where Laurie Strode fought Michael Myers? She's back. We're doing more, baby. I think that's kind of the phase now. So we're seeing maybe the start of like long goodbyes. I would put money down that in 20 years when Marvel is the MCU is officially dead and they want to reboot it totally, we get somehow the exact same credit sequence. Like there's going to be Green Day. They're going to have Robert Downey Jr. behind the scene clips.
Oh, whenever MCU nostalgia pops up when all the Gen Z kids are our age, it's going to be fucking bonkers. Remember when they made real movies?
They will make Hugh Jackman do this until he's 90. I don't even know if that was a joke in the film.
He'll be just as jacked, though. I think there is something really special about, particularly like Reynolds doing this, and then utilizing a character like Deadpool, the character you'd expect to be punching downward at all those franchises that like kind of went out very unceremoniously. X-Men got fucked so hard at the end because, ironically, of MCU shit and business mergers. And
Reynolds kind of has a special spot, though. He's privileged because he's been in several of those movies, right?
Yes.
He was in the shitty X-Men Origins version of Deadpool, so he gets to make fun of that. He gets to make fun of his own persona, obviously. Then he gets to make fun of even Blade, although he doesn't directly call out his character. The fact that Blade is in there calls back to his own history within the superhero genre. He's been in multiple failed superhero spin-offs, so he is more qualified than pretty much anyone to get to say goodbye to these with a little bit of grace.
Yeah.
He is bad superhero movies, sir.
I mean, who else really could lay claim to that title? Even though a lot of his stuff was like supporting characters, like who cares about Hannibal, fucking Blade 3. He still was like an actual
waiting for that
main
Night
character
Stalkers spinoff, by the way.
Someday.
R.I.P. D3.
Oh, God. I hate that you just reminded me that they made a 2. That makes me...
Sorry, Jeffrey Donovan.
Even referencing the fact there's been multiple Punishers, throwing all these lines in here like, oh yeah, even the stuff outside the Fox universe, all that shit matters. And using a character who's irreverent, and you would expect to be making fun of all of that. And I think it makes it... We have a lot of emotional connection with a lot of those movies. And there has been a very long narrative that they are lesser because they're not the MCU, which I don't even think someone like Kevin Feige necessarily feels that way about a lot of that. We're making them ourselves now because of all the other shit, but that's not to say there's not a connection with all of them, and they're not the reason the MCU itself exists. It's a bit of an Ouroboros. So instead of punching down and erasing them, being able to say these things can live on as part of the legacy of the MCU in some soft way. I think as just a piece of... It's weird to call the MCU film history, but at this point it is. It is a large chunk of film history that it has a lineage that goes back a lot further. The fact that you can point to Lundgren's Punisher now as part of that lineage is fucking amazing.
My God, that's one of the most amazing moments of that sizzle reel that plays over the credits is just seeing Chris Evans goof around on the set of Fantastic Four with Jessica Alba. Thinking like, oh yeah, like so many of these movies that have been mostly forgotten were kind of ground zero for 2000s young Hollywood, with a lot of people who stuck around for a really long time.
All I know is you cannot force me to care about Elektra.
Affleck said no.
Am I the only one fascinated by the fact that they made Elektra's costume so dark that depending on the lighting, it doubles as both red and black?
It was a nice touch. Also kind of just wrote her as Elektra, which Garner surprisingly pulled off.
I have always thought Garner could be a perfectly fine Elektra in an actual Elektra project.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. The only problem, she's too white. That's the only problem.
Doesn't help much, yeah.
Also, I kept thinking Blade was wearing an Iron Man chest piece, and it kept fucking with my head.
I couldn't take my eyes off his white soul patch.
That was a very comic book soul patch.
I love that there was a extremely subtle Blade Trinity reunion in this movie.
How awkward do you think that phone call was when Ryan Reynolds called up and he's like, hey, been a while.
Sober now.
I'm White Boy. Remember White Boy? I'm White Boy.
It's so painful knowing that if they hadn't already promised a Mahershala Ali, a Blade project, that will never happen. They probably could have just done one more Blade movie in the MCU with Wesley Snipes.
Old man Blade.
Well, I don't think they get David Goyer back, so I don't know what they do for Blade 4.
Daughter of Blade.
I do imagine that no matter how sane Wesley Snipes seems right now, he could turn any moment.
Like Laura
You never know. You never know. He could be stealing art or something. We don't know what he does in his off time.
Hold on, that'd be a way cooler movie to see, though. Wesley Snipes just stealing, like, the Mona Lisa.
Oh my God, the Thomas Crown Affair with Wesley Snipes.
Just imagine his National Treasure, but in reverse. Like, he's not doing it to save the nation. He's, like, trying to destroy the nation. He's the bad guy version of Nick Cage.
Is this Wake Up Dead Man? Is this Knives Out 3?
I would pay to see that movie. It sounds a lot of fun to me. Wesley Snipes just being, like, the greatest thief ever, just breaking into national monuments and taking cool shit. Sean Bean is also in there, but he's the good guy now.
Yes! We should
I want this movie.
Are we just wanting to talk around doing episodes about National Treasure 1 and 2?
I definitely do one for National Treasure 1.
Dollar Bill's trying to tell me something.
Well, National Treasure 2 would be a bop and a tragedy commentary.
That's fair.
Has cool practical effects, though.
You know, I only saw it once. I saw it once in theaters, so I really should give it another shot to see if I
was great. I saw that in
much.
theaters, and they played a Looney Tunes cartoon before it.
Oh, that's always fun.
I will give National Treasure 2 points for being mercifully short, whereas National Treasure 1 is a fucking miniseries.
I have a lot of love for National Treasure 1. I've never really noticed the pacing dragging, though.
I enjoy National Treasure 1. It's fun.
Fun for the whole family. I saw it with my folks.
And you learn history.
It's great. Yeah, we all had a good time. I would love to do an episode of National Treasure.
That actually,
Can we do National Treasure? I'm 100%.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, so we're making plans. There
we go. The episode's done because now you're seeing what happens behind the scenes.
Yay! All of our episodes end this way. One day we'll get to the rock and roller commentary.
No,
One more comment about the movie.
Not.
One more comment about the movie before we get out of here. Is anybody else obsessed with the weird pigeon talk accent that Chris Evans is doing as Johnny?
That was interesting.
He seemed to latch on the fact he'd be called Johnny repeatedly, and he became a Venture Brothers character.
He's specifically playing a variant of Johnny from a Jack Kirby 60s universe. I'm obsessed with the fact that Logan wore the Wolverine costume to honor Scott, which is why it's blue and yellow. And I cannot believe that is the first time I've ever seen that used in an X-Men.
I know. Also, it means in that universe, it wasn't Logan and Jean, right? That's how I'm choosing to take this. That's how I'm choosing to take this.
Hickman gave us the big bed.
Yes.
All right. We are closing in on that hour mark, folks. And if we go any longer, we're just going to have to fight each other. And we're going to have a 20-minute fight inside of a Hyundai Sonata. And it's not going to be as budgeted as the one in the movie. So it's just going to be us slapping each other for 2 hours.
And it's a rental, so we'll have to return it. That's going to be a problem. That's
everyone clean your shoes before you get in the fight car. Well,
who brought the pies?
Oh, no. Anyways, folks, thank you so much for listening to us. I don't know if you got anything out of that. Maybe you did. If you're on my side, though, help me overthrow this podcast and just institute negative vibes over all of the episodes.
Negative vibes.
You're like a Captain Planet villain.
That's right. Bad vibes is my game. Folks, if you want more of Box Office Pulp, you can find us at Mike, are we still boxofficepulp.com? There's been a lot of rearranging going on. I don't even know if our URL's the same.
boxofficepulp.com.
We're doing some fun work behind the scenes, so I guess you should expect some visual improvements coming up here pretty soon.
Mike is actually putting all of our behind-the-scenes work and chart at the feet of Hardak from Batman the Animated Series.
Thank God.
His silicone soul.
But you can find Box Office Pulp also in all of its old normal spots. You can find us on Spotify. I immediately want to say Google Music, but that's not true anymore.
No, it's gone. It's gone forever. I'm getting us on YouTube, though. So you can find us on YouTube Music soon.
Yeah, that'd be cool. So just look around. Box Office Pulp. There's a ton of other episodes, a lot of commentaries from us if you want deeper dives into things instead of just first blush opinions that I might grow to regret over the years. Check us out.
And X-Men commentaries.
Yeah, and X-Men commentaries. Anyways, folks, that's a wrap. Let's get the hell out of here.
And like that, he's gone.
I do actually, I wrote all my notes out for the Rock and Roller episode, the commentary. They're somewhere. I have them saved somewhere.
I bought the movie to do the commentary.
I was really hoping if we waited long enough. I was really hoping at some point they would like put out a Blu-ray if we waited long enough. But
Same.
Now I think we're going to record the episode and then they'll put out the Blu-ray.
No, that's what's going to happen.
If that's the price, that's a small one to pay.
Occasionally we get things done in the film industry by doing episodes or random references. It fucks us somehow, but it helps everybody else. So I think that's what's important.
They'll announce a Rock and Roller reboot as soon as we record our episode, and everyone's be like, we're never going to watch the original. We've got this new shiny one.
They promised in the fucking credits, Rock and Roller 2, the real Rock and Roller. I'm waiting.
Binding. That's a Hollywood promise. They never go back on their word. They have to give it to us now before I die.
That's why I still, to this day, call Clerks 2 Hardly Clerkin'.
God damn it. Instead, Guy Ritchie is doing all of the other things Guy Ritchie has done. Think about that. He made The Gentleman instead of Rock and Roller 2.
Didn't he do the Mystery of Gentlemanly Warfare? Yeah, that was him. That was fun. I like that. It's no Rock and Roller, but it's fun. It's always cool to see like big, strong Hulk men kill Nazis with bow and arrows. Like that's a thing I enjoy watching.
It's the closest we'll ever get to a Wolfenstein movie.
Yeah. Boy, that'd be cool too. Anyways, how many of our post-credit scenes do you think are dedicated to just discussing not doing the Rock and Roll? Like percentage-wise, we've got to be entering like dangerous territory where people just expect it like 20% of the time now.
We can do a supercut with the next volume of Bop Brews.
That's what we're just going to put all of those together, and instead of actually doing a commentary for the Rock and Roller, it's just talking around not doing the Rock and Roller.
Never get around to starting it, and then it turns out we actually ingested cyanide right before starting the recorder. So just as we're about to finally start the movie, after 2.5 hours of preamble, we die.
I get confused because I just drank a lot of apple juice and everyone else is dead, but I didn't know the plan.
It was Applejack.
God damn, I love Hundreds of Beavers.
This here show is brought to you by Zencastr, the all-in-one solution for podcasting that's easy as logging in and hitting record. With Zencastr, you get studio-quality sound up to 4K video right from your browser. No more worrying about unstable connections thanks to Zencastr's multi-layered backups that ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality. But that's not all. Zencastr's post-production process makes you sound like a pro. It automatically removes those pesky ums and ahs and even those awkward pauses in conversation. If only it could remove those from my love life. But gone are the days of needing a bunch of different tools and services to create a podcast. Zencastr's complete platform lets you create, edit, and distribute your podcast all in one place, allowing you to easily publish to Spotify, Apple, and all other major destinations. So why wait? Start your podcasting journey with Zencastr today and experience the Zen of podcasting. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use my code BOXOFFICEPULP, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story.